There have been 144 teams that have lined up and played football for the University of Michigan. But the 2023 version of the Maize and Blue might be the best of them all.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
Defense wins championships. You know, in this era of football, we talk about quarterback play. We talk about offense at the college level. We talk about it at the NFL level. Heck, some people even talk about it at the high school level. But defense, physicality, winning at the line of scrimmage, old school, traditional Big Ten football can still win a national championship in 2023 and as we head towards 2024. What a tremendous accomplishment for the Michigan Wolverines, going 15-0. If you kind of look at the back half of their schedule this season, you can say what you want about the front half, and I'll probably agree with you. But when you look at the back half of this season, going to Penn State, beating Ohio State, beating Alabama in the Rose Bowl, and then beating the number one offense in the country in Washington the way they did, that is an impressive start to the finish to go wire to wire without losing a football game. When you talk about why this game went down the way it did, it's because Michigan can beat you any way they choose to beat you. I've been saying that all year long. Which way did they choose today? They chose violence. And they chose violence up front. Man, did they come out guns a-blazing. They let the big boys eat up front. They were dominant. They were bullies in the schoolyard. They just pushed Washington's defense around up front, and they just ran it down their throat to start this game. How about Donovan Edwards coming out of witness protection? For whatever reason, he just hasn't seemed like himself. He just hasn't been as explosive in 2023 like he was in 2022. It was great to see him hit those big runs because as Michigan probably deals with a lot of turnover, maybe at the coaching staff and on-field personnel, Donovan Edwards might be that guy in this offense, might be one of the big returners next season that Michigan can lean on. So in this final game of 2023, it was really good to see him have those type of plays, and it was just another weapon, right? He was maybe not the weapon in this offense this season, but then when he got going, that was just another guy. Oh, we got to deal with Donovan Edwards. We got to deal with Blake Corum. We know Khalil Mullins is in there as well in this run game. It was just another thing for Washington to worry about. Michigan came out swinging big, and they knocked Washington to the canvas. And the official maybe started the count. There were points in that first half where Michigan maybe could have put Washington down for the count. But big props to the Huskies. They got back up. They took that first initial shot on those first three drives where Michigan scored points, 2 touchdowns and a field goal on those first 3 drives. And this defense made adjustments. Boy, it was the defense there in the middle portion of this football game that was giving the Huskies a chance to possibly get back, tie this game, maybe even win this game. But it was that number 1 ranked offense that was out of rhythm all game long. When you look at this matchup statistically, some numbers really pop off the page. How about Michael Penix Jr. throwing the ball 51 times in this game? It was that interception. That interception to start the second half was a backbreaker because the Huskies were really taking that momentum, right? 17-10. It could have been a lot bigger deficit. And they had the ball after deferring the coin toss. They had the ball kind of coming out in the second half. That interception on the first play of the half was a backbreaker, right? Because if Washington can get a solid drive and get into the end zone tie game, it's a completely different ball game throughout this whole deal as well. When I say Michigan can choose to beat you any way they choose to beat you, look at the J.J. McCarthy stat line. Only 18 passes, no passing touchdowns in this game. But J.J. McCarthy doesn't care, right? He cares about winning. This Michigan team just cares about winning. Okay, J.J. McCarthy is going to worry about his NFL prospects after this game in the coming weeks. But he had to do and he had to make throws when he did to be able to move the football, get first downs. And he did make key throws within this football game. And when you look at those running stat lines of both Corum and Edwards, those are the type of numbers that we expected to see from this tandem throughout this season. We saw it a lot more with Corum this year than with Edwards, but that 1-2 tandem, and boy, they really rode that fast start, and they held on, and their defense did enough. And look, when we talk about the Michigan defense, look at Odunze, look at McMillan. Polk didn't have a great game either. I thought Washington coming into this game would get theirs, right? I thought Michigan might give up some stuff, but they did a tremendous job in coverage. These defensive backs were fantastic for the Michigan Wolverines, and that's what I really want to dive into right now is that Michigan defense. The number one offense in the country. Can we please stop? Can we please stop with this narrative that Big Ten defenses are only good because of maybe some of the lackluster offenses they take on to the Big Ten? Look at Ohio State holding Missouri scoreless for 3 quarters. Look at Michigan, the way they played against Alabama. Look at the way they not only contained, but shut down the number one offense in all of college football. Penn State had a bad day against Ole Miss with a good amount of opt-outs. Michigan, and a little bit Ohio State, but this one's all about the maize and blue. Michigan proved that narrative it's just straight garbage. All right, let's get more into this game as well. How was Michigan able to do what they did against Michael Penix Jr.? Because this Wolverine defense had just 1 sack. If you said coming into this game, Michigan got 1 sack, I said, yeah, okay, that makes sense. This is a really good pass protection, Joe Moore award-winning offensive line for Washington. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. When you really watch this game live, they didn't get to Michael Penix a lot, but they hit him enough. You saw him kind of grabbing his ribs late in this game. What Michigan was able to do in terms of their pressure is speed up what Washington was doing. Because when Michael Penix Jr. wants to go through 3-4 of his progressions, Michigan was quick enough, and they forced Michael Penix Jr. to get rid of the ball quickly where maybe he could go only through 1 of his progressions or 2 of his progressions. There were multiple situations where Michael Penix Jr. missed an open man because his mind, his internal clock, was ticking a lot faster in this game than it had in other games throughout the season for the University of Washington. Look, Washington, I think, got a deep ball, maybe a couple late in this game. But Michigan did exactly what they did against Alabama. They did a great job preventing the deep ball, and they needed to do a better job. It was more of a threat in this game in the Washington game than it was in the Alabama game. We know when Washington can stretch out the defense deep, everything else opens up. Michigan was more than willing to play check down football. They were more than willing to defend that and just have Washington be more invested in that short passing game throughout this thing as well. And their tacklers did a really good job in space at not allowing Washington to break free for a lot of big yards after catch. This Michigan defense proved why they are exactly the number one defense in all of college football. And when you take a look at that coverage, there's a relationship, okay, between a secondary and a defensive line and a pass rush. And there was a pretty good relationship for the Michigan Wolverines, because when this defensive line, this front 4, this front 5, whatever it was, whatever the front was looking like for Michigan, when they were able at least to get a little bit of pressure and, like I said, quicken that internal clock for this offense at Washington, this defense was able to sit back in zone coverage. And they were able to keep everything in front of them, because when you got to bring more guys up in pressure, that forces you to play man coverage. Everything worked together very well. It all started up front. It all started with what they were able to do, getting just enough pressure. If you look just at the final stat lines and stuff like tackles for loss and sacks, you might say, well, Michigan didn't get pressure. You watch the game a little bit more closely. Tick, tick, tick. That internal clock ticking just a little bit faster forced Michael Penix out of his rhythm and out of his comfort zone and got him just a little bit off schedule. And when it got him off, just a little bit off schedule, this whole Washington offense just kind of get a little bit off kilter as well. Jim Harbaugh returned to the University of Michigan, 2015, to put him back on the map. And that's exactly what he did. I believe that this is Jim Harbaugh's final game. I believe he's going to be the head coach of the LA Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders, or somebody else within the National Football League. He did exactly what he came to the University of Michigan to do, is to get them back to the mountaintop of college football, is to get them their first national championship since they shared it with Nebraska in 1997. And when you look at Jim Harbaugh's resume as a head coach in college football, this is the icing on the cake. This is kind of right when he goes, when it looks like, if he does in fact go to the NFL, right? The one thing that's really missing from his resume and that he strives and that a goal that he has is to win a Super Bowl. He came so close against his brother John in New Orleans all those years ago. And in the college football world, he accomplished what he set out to do, to maybe complete and add closure to maybe his college career. He had some really good years at Stanford, coming back to his alma mater, a place that him and his family love so dearly, to be able to win the national championship. I believe after flirting with the NFL the last 2 seasons, the business was not done. They came back. He came back. Other guys on this team, they all came back to do one thing and one thing only: win every single game and win a national championship. And that's, I believe, going to give Jim Harbaugh enough closure to say, they might build a statue for me one day in Michigan. I came here to do what I said I would do, and now I can accomplish my last coaching goal of my coaching career. For the University of Washington, what a great season. Okay, this was one of the best seasons, maybe the best season in Washington history. I know you did not end it the way you wanted it to. I know you go back to 1991 when they won a national championship and beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl. That could be, right, a great season as well, but it's one of the best seasons, I think this is, no question, for the University of Washington. This is going to be a team that I think is going to be towards the top in the Big Ten going forward. They know what they have to get better at. Welcome to the Big Ten, Washington. This is how we play football. It's tough. It's physical. It's defensive. This is the first real merging of the waters, so to speak, between the West Coast teams and the traditional Big Ten teams. Traditional Big Ten football can still win, folks. The contrast of styles, what was so interesting. I said coming into this game, who's going to dictate the flow of the game? Whoever forces the other team to play their style is going to win. Well, when you look at the Big Ten Conference, we still play old school, traditional football, and it still works. A tremendous season of Big Ten football, and it ends with a Michigan Wolverine national title.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.